UK-based activist investment platform Tulipshare is calling for Nike to implement contract clauses developed by the American Bar Association to protect workers in international supply chains. Now, the company, which owns 276 shares of Nike, has filed a shareholder proposal ahead of its annual general meeting. It asks the mega brand to oversee and issue a shareholder report to assess the effectiveness of its supply chain and ensure alignment with its human rights commitments. Yahoo Finance reached out to Nike for comment. Joining us now to discuss is Tulipshare Founder and CEO Antoine Argouges. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. So I want to first ask you about what prompted this. Obviously, I know that you've said in your note from Tulipshare that some of those initiatives that you've seen from the UN are being implemented, but what are the ones that you would like to see Nike do more on?
Well, realistically, for everyone to understand, in the supply chain of such a big company like Nike, you have the tier one supplier, which are basically the last end of the funnel. Then you have the tier two producing the manufacturing good, and then the tier three, which are producing the raw material. What we're asking here is Nike to disclose and update its internal control policy effectively on the tier two and the tier three of the supply chain, which is impacting its most vulnerable workers.
And you do have 5 recommendations that you've put in that report. Walk us through them. I know one of them is assessing the existing policies, as you mentioned there, but also consistency with the OECD guidelines.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a lot of materials out there for Nike to pull from in order to update its internal policies. We think a company such as Nike, which is very innovative in its supply chain, is also innovative in the control of its supply chain and should definitely update according to the American Bar Associations, the OECD guidelines, some human rights principles, which we know for sure Nike is not respecting all of them, even according to their internal audit. So now, we've assembled enough shares to be able to go to the AGM. We've reached out to Nike multiple times in order to get response and progress on this, with absolutely no engagement from the company.
And we did reach out to Nike as well at Yahoo Finance and weren't able to get a response at the moment. But so far then, are there any other activist investors really pushing for these same initiatives?
There is a lot of people pushing to improve, obviously, social commitment and workers' rights, not only in the supply chain, but across the whole value chain. You have a lot of voice now that are saying that being an active investor is going to destroy shareholder value. And that is absolutely wrong. We believe that on the long term, rising and improving social commitment and workers' condition will drive shareholder value up. Not doing so pose a huge risk, potentially on consumer demand. You never know what happens with tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. If a scandal happens, then this can come back onto consumer demand and therefore impact shareholder value and share price.
So Antoine, if you don't receive any sort of response or an appropriate response from Nike, what would the next move be?
We haven't received any response so far. Nike has been completely ignoring us. This is why we filed this shareholder proposal, which, we've already filed shareholder proposal at multiple large organizations, such as a very successful campaign at Apple, at Johnson & Johnson. Last year, we received 44% voting support at Amazon to improve working condition in the fulfillment center. So really here, it's about asking for every other shareholder at Nike their opinion. Where do you want to stand on this issue? Do you want to be on the right side of history or on the wrong side of history? And if Nike doesn't want to engage with us, then it's going to be a decision that's going to be made by every shareholder.
And what about consumers themselves? Is there any sort of outreach that you're doing for consumers to become aware of this so that they can also perhaps chime in here if the idea is to get more pressure on Nike to act?
Absolutely. Everyone should be involved into this. It's the rising tides that raise all the boats. We have a consumer platform that allows everyone who's a shareholder to show support to one of our campaigns. You can access our website and bring your support wherever you are owning your shares, whoever you are. It doesn't depend if you're a small shareholder or a massive institution. You can tag along and bring support. This is really, it's now a shareholder matter, and it's going to have to be discussed and decided in between shareholders.
And when you think of, I believe in your notes, you said 27.6 million people estimated trapped into forced labor here. How much of an onus is there when Nike is trying to sort of balance bottom line with also shareholder responsibility and the issues that you're bringing to the table here? Is there just a concern that it's not going to be worth Nike sort of taking up your cause if it's not affecting their bottom line enough?
You know, the share price is down already 9.7% in a year, so it did not waited for our shareholder proposal to actually have an impact. So we believe that it's the opposite. It's actually pushing for stronger environmental and social commitment that is going to drive up customer demand and provide a significant better return for shareholder value. You know, down the line, it's going to have an impact on the bottom line. It's the opposite, not doing anything, the inaction and business as usual that could have a greater negative effect.
I do appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. Tulipshare founder and CEO Antoine Argouges, thank you so much for joining us on Yahoo Finance.